Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Talks, where we talk about Bitcoin life and stuffs with Bitcoiners and people who have dedicated their life on the mission and the vision of the project of Satoshi Nakamoto. And today we have with us Saravanan Mani, and Saravanan is like one of the key people in driving community and the gospel of Bitcoin around India, and he operates from Chennai. So Saravanan, it's really great to have you here. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. It's been a pleasure. So, been waiting for this conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you and me have had already a lot of conversations off the record about various things, and so yeah, really excited to dive deep. So to start with, just give the viewers a brief introduction of yourself and what you do and what you are up to mostly these days.
yeah. So, I'm born and brought up in Chennai, family man, living with parents, wife, and kid. So, almost, basically from computer engineering background, worked in IT industry for around 10 years and a couple of years of break from the industry and was working in some NGOs doing volunteering stuff, things like that. Then after some point around 4 to 5 years back, roughly, uh, I started getting more interest in free market and capitalism and free speech kind of ideologies. I started believing those ideologies because to me it made sense more than whatever that I was doing before. The strategies, the approaches that I was trying to learn and do. So the free market capitalism and free speech kind of made more sense to me for betterment of the society and things. And it's more interesting as well to
Mhm.
improve the life, liberty, and property stuff like that. So, but to how to scale free market capitalism to the society as much as possible to reach the more people. Uh, I was looking for the solutions that already exist and want to do some contribution to that kind of solutions,
Mhm.
whatever the
Mhm.
projects that already exist or tools that already exist. In that journey, I ended up with Bitcoin because I my learning led me to have an understanding of having a sound money is more important so that capitalism works in its best form. To have a sound money without interference from the government, it seems that Bitcoin is the one of the best shot that is available in the society. That's
Mhm.
my understanding I had a few years back. So I started slowly learning its technicals and the theories and use cases stuff and that. So started doing some meetups, knowledge sharing with the friends and allowing them with Bitcoin conversations, stuff like that. Whenever I meet friends
Right.
and family members, stuff like that. Basic pleb excitement. Then at one point I decided to join Bitcoin industry as an employer and as an employee.
Right.
So that's how we ended up with my current organization, Bitcoin,
Right.
Bitgo.
So you are working in right now in
In Bitgo, which is
right,
a digital custody service provider for
right,
enterprise
and
primarily.
you are mostly working around the back end on the
Yeah,
engineering side,
yeah,
and yeah, on the Bitcoin side of it, because Bitco has a popularity in the space of being a shitcoin company also, and yeah, but how is your experience with Bitgo working so far?
actually, honestly, this is the best, both best in terms of both culture and technical opportunities, learning opportunities. The
Mm-hmm.
peers are really I mean, they are highly skilled and they are highly helping people,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Bitcoin team. Within Bitgo, we have a team called Bitcoin. I'm currently part of the team only.
Right.
So very few members, few people are there. So yeah, they are highly skilled, knowledge, experienced in the Bitcoin domain itself. Some of them are
Right.
having more than 5, 8 years of experience in the Bitcoin domain.
Oh,
It's
right.
really, really good. I'm
So
learning
it
a lot.
does have an internal Bitcoin toxic maxi team.
I hope you would understand that even something that exists, something like that, I cannot say something like that in public forum. So my comment
Yeah.
is no.
Okay. Okay, but that's understandable. That's how Bitcoiners work. Yeah, great. So let's we want to give the viewer a basic understanding of like how does a journey of a Bitcoiner look like. So to start with some details, like when was the first time you heard about Bitcoin, like the first hearing the word Bitcoin, and what was your first reaction to it?
Actually, I'm not able to recollect the exact year or timeline. I would just eyeball roughly 2013, 12, somewhere like that. I've seen some word like Bitcoin. That's it. Something digital Bitcoin. That's it. Nothing. I didn't even have any interest to look into that. I was kind of uh, government controlled solution seeking person when it comes to problems in the society.
Hmm.
That's the uh, belief system I had. So I didn't even have interest about, or even knowledge about that money is something that is very important. I didn't have that
Right.
interest or knowledge. But actually, I started getting into more looking is around 2017, 18. That
Mhm.
timeline when the bubble Bitcoin uh, bull market was running in the timeline. So I started
Right.
seeing in the news and the social media and all. That's the time that I started looking into it. What is this? Something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, uh, but during the exact same timeline only, I started looking into understanding the capitalism, free market kind of ideologies and the solutions. So it's
Right.
in one at one point it converged in some
Right.
public forum. I'm not exactly able to remember the exact point, but some way it collided. This free market learning curve. I mean, exploring the Mises.org kind of materials and
Mhm.
videos, understanding sound money systems, gold standard, uh, these kind of things. But somehow the same line, this bull market. So I ended up with Bitcoin. That's how I ended up with Bitcoin. And I started
Right.
learning about what it is actually, the basics. I
Right.
understood a bit. I started spending time in Twitter, Observer, following multiple Twitter influencers into Bitcoin domain. That's how I started learning. A huge learning from Andreas Antonopoulos. I would say that he's the one
Right.
that led me to the Bitcoin clear cut.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would say him
And
and
he,
Vijay. Yeah,
yeah, his origin, like old videos, like the OG
yeah,
videos from
yeah.
2013, 2014, where he was like explaining the philosophy of what is happening, why it is happening, and what do you do about it. Yeah, those were like the also the time when I joined the space, 2017, 2018, and entirely was gulping Andreas and like, whoa, what the
Wow.
hell this guy is
Wow.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I also like found you and a few other folks around when 2018, when we started the Telegram group. There were very few people in Bitcoin and seriously talking about Bitcoin in India, and you were one of the few first. And so we kind of gathered together over that group and started like kept having that conversation over there. So so coming from a computer science background, was Bitcoin like very obvious to you as a engineer, like why it works the way it does, and the detail of the machines and detail of the protocol, and how much time did it took you to grasp the concept technically?
So actually, I technically I during the 2017-18 timeline, technically I only spent minimal amount of time and to only grasp the architecture of the core tech architecture of the Bitcoin itself, the high level components, not the very detailed things. I didn't read any books or detailed articles and all. But as a high level, I understood what is proof of works, uh, blockchain, data structure, and other things that works within the Bitcoin system. the peer-to-peer nature of the nodes, the gossip protocols and stuff like that. Only the high-level stuff.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I didn't. That high-level understanding made me believe that this is a system that should work. But I initially thought that I'm not that very smart computer science or computer engineering person. I would say I'm a little bit above mediocre. That's where that I place myself. So I thought that there should be better ways than proof of work.
Mhm.
And I thought initially, from the use case perspective, Bitcoin should have non-monetary utility also. Some other
Mhm.
utility that should give some uh, peg to the real world use cases, something like gold. Because I try to compare with the gold, try to map this Bitcoin to the gold. So gold has a utility of some jewelry and a shiny element, right? So I wanted to think that the Bitcoin should have some non-monetary utility use cases inherently
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
protocol level. Then I ended up
You
going
said
to
you used to. You don't you think it? You still don't think it right now?
no, not at all, not at all. It's
Okay.
completely out of the picture from my mind now. I don't
Okay.
think that's the case. Yeah, that's
So
the initial
a
idea.
conversation with you and Ordinal will be interesting.
Uh, yeah, that could be. So that's now I'm a pure monetary platform, uh, monetary Bitcoin network. That's the bucket that I'm currently for at least
Mhm.
for many years. I'm not in a bucket of adding other utilities to the existing Bitcoin network.
Mhm.
Yeah, so ordinal would be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's how I ended up with Bitcoin. Then I ended up with some shitcoinery.
Mhm.
I started fell into EOS.
Mhm. Right.
I was a big follower of Dan Larimer, the
Mhm.
person who did the project.
Right.
So I thought that why Bitcoin is a separate system, EOS can have a Bitcoin like Bitcoin as an application itself. That's the direction I went into initially. I spent some months and started understanding EOS technically, did some hobby projects on that, learned basics. After some point, I read the Bitcoin Standard, the book from Saifuddin
Mhm.
Abbas. So
Mhm.
after reading that book, everything from that point until now, I'm in the same bucket in everything almost when it comes to Bitcoin. So I understood the clear narration of Saifuddin. So then I was only focusing my interest. Everything was around only the monetary utility of Bitcoin, how it works,
Mhm.
and the non-inflationary aspect. Because
Mhm.
when it comes to Andreas Antonopoulos' videos, he was primarily focusing on the censorship resistance aspect of the Bitcoin. He
Right.
didn't focus on non-inflationary aspect of it.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but Saifuddin Amo's book gave me that direction also, and the nature of not changing the protocol, sticking as it is
Mhm.
without changing. I won't change from the base
Mhm.
monetary policies. That thing, I had a better understanding from the Saifuddin's book. Then I
Right.
realized that proof of works is the only thing, and why Bitcoin should stand alone and why it should not have any other non-monetary utilities, so that it will not be disturbed because of the non-monetary utilities pushes, wins and all. It has to stand alone, even though if it going to take more time, let it be like that.
Mhm.
It has to be more
Right.
like gold, like compressed, not some
Right.
fancy
It's like
stuff.
a stable beacon that is
Yeah,
like constant and not changing and not
yeah.
fluctuating, and on top of which the rest of the market and the economy can like base itself, and basically create the hopefully stop the business cycle of the inevitable business cycle of the fiat money systems.
Yeah.
Um, so like, because we are on the topic of proof of work, and that being the only way to create this kind of stability, so shoot your argument to our viewer why proof of work and not proof of anything else.
So when it comes to a system where we expect that no compromise on security, no compromise on its rule changing. The rule has to stick at it as it is, and no security compromise. uh, we need some solution which uh, puts physical barriers from the outsiders, or any person or entity tries to modify it or attack it. Physical barriers. So proof of work brings that physical barriers in terms of electricity and computing resource plus time. More than because of these two elements, it brings indirectly time, because to acquire
Hmm.
the hardware it takes time to build the hardware
Hmm.
and acquire it, and the
Right.
logistics and time frame and
To
everything.
run the
And
hashes, you also need time. It's not like
also,
if you put a lot of energy, it instantaneously goes out. Like the hashes takes time to calculate.
yes. So both the hardware manufacturing and the setting up the infrastructure and the people's skills to run these mining facilities, and the electricity, acquiring the electricity, and running the system, and the point that you made of making the system to use this that time, all these times, because we have to take the time of the building the components itself, right? The chips itself, the hardware
Right.
machines, and the electricity, the labor, the building the infrastructure and the stuff, everything is time. So this time and the physical cost, this involves when it comes to proof of works. That stops people from that, disintensifies people from invest more time, because even if an entity, a powerful entity like any number of colluded governments try to do this, it will be very visible to the outer world. People will
Hmm.
observe it, because it's not something that you can do it in a proof of stake system within your room. You can
Right.
do some computer science engineering and solve crack these proof of stake systems. To
Hmm.
crack proof of work, you need physical things. It will be visible, it will take time, it will take money, it will take resources. That is a barrier. Why we cannot, why simply a robbery, a person who robs goes directly to a very powerful or more wealthy custodial solutions when it comes to cash.
Hmm.
I mean, banks and all. Why they are not going to
Hmm.
JP Morgan's wallet? Why
Hmm.
they are going to local small regional banks wallet to rob? Because it takes less number of resources, less number of people to rob, less number of time to plan that event, attack, stuff like that. To attack a JP Morgan's vault, I mean, I'm just assuming that there will be a JP
Hmm.
Morgan vault. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, you need many resources, people, skill, time, money, skills, etc., many things. That's the same
Yeah.
thing when it comes to Bitcoin. To attack a Bitcoin, it needs this, you have to bypass these barriers. Other
Right.
system simply doesn't have. That's my
Right.
primary reason why I believe in proof of work.
Yeah. Another way I like to put it is like in proof of anything else, if that anything else isn't physical, if it's something as abstract as steak, right, or something that is like an abstract thing that only makes sense to the human mind, those, because it's a computer system, those abstractions can be generated and those abstractions can be manipulated. And in proof of work, the cost is real energy. So no matter how much code you write, you cannot create real energy or fake real energy. You can you can fake stake, you can fake anything else, but you cannot fake energy. And that's where like the solution kind of goes outside of the domain of computer science and goes into physical reality of energy thermodynamics and provides that cover of barrier and the protection against the system. That's what
Yes,
makes the system
exactly.
work. On this corollary
But
thing.
on another point also, when it comes to why proof of work, the second point that I believe in is the simplicity of the proof of work. Because
Mhm.
when it comes to engineering, people with experience knows this. Simplicity matters much uh, when it comes to a system, because it doesn't introduce us multiple attack vectors,
Mhm.
multiple stupid bugs that
Mhm.
is inherent with complex systems, right? Proof of work is a
Mhm.
very simple system. When it comes to proof of stake or other variant of those, they are
Mhm.
introducing multiple layers of solutions. They are introducing one patch as a one solution for one problem. That introduces
Mhm.
another problem. They're introducing another
Yeah.
one. The ever engineering, never ending engineering
Engineering
solutions is happening.
complexities.
But
Yeah.
when it
And
comes to proof of work, That's it. Whatever that was introduced almost those 10 years back
It's just
still
one
stays.
single math function.
That's it.
Hash this number. That's it.
That's it. That's it. No complexities. That reduces the
Y-
attack vector and bug vector and all.
Yeah, 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 true. So, um, on another point around this proof of work, proof of stake, this is also I found in my initial studies, is like there is a narrative of saying proof of useful work. And the idea is like the proof of work thing, the hashing algorithm of Bitcoin is like using energy, doing Bitcoin hashes, producing proof of work, but this hashes is not useful anymore. Like they are not used anywhere. So few developers and few people, few smart people even came up with this idea, like why not make this energy useful? So while you are like mining Bitcoin, why not use some of that energy and create something that that, like for example, like protein folding, mining Bitcoin and protein folding happening parallelly. So you are importing energy, Bitcoin is getting secured, at the same time you are getting proteins folded. So that's the idea of proof of useful work. Do you have any like connotations or like agreement disagreement over this?
Actually, I have a disagreement over that because based on our last point, right? So the resource consumption of the Bitcoin for the security reasons. Now, what we are talking is with this useful work, compromising on that security reason, because now we are
Mm-hmm.
splitting the resources for something else also.
Hmm.
So now we are incentivizing. Uh, Now, whatever the amount of electricity, computers, and the skills, other resource, other form of resources that is spent on proof of work with the Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
network, is everything is to secure that network only. If you start making that thing useful for other things, that is a compromise on that security. Because as simple
Right.
as that, resource equivalent, more number of resources, more number of securities. But you are splitting that resources from that system, compromising a
Exactly.
security.
Exactly. That was the problem of like, yeah. And that's why like there are like lots of ideas floating around in this way, and some people also like mistaken like proof of work is old, proof of stake is the new cutting edge thing that is an improvement of proof of stake. But that's actually false, because the idea of proof of stake is actually older than proof of work. And Satoshi knew about proof of stake, and there are like Bitcoin talk forums where in 2010, 2011, people were talking about why proof of work and why not proof of stake. And the idea of like using proof of work, and Satoshi was very clear about why proof of work and not proof of anything else. So yep, we will share some resources and link to the description of this video for viewers who are interested on this kind of topics to explore more on proof of work, proof of stakes, and the nuances between these things can check out and um, start their own study process.
Yeah. As a summary,
So,
I would say something like this: proof of stake heavily depends on game theory, uh, but when it comes to proof of work, it heavily depends on the physical resources, less amount of game theory. Because when
mm-hmm,
you are heavily depending your system, building a system on game theory, now you are depending
mm-hmm,
upon the human's nature, the
mm-hmm,
politics of the human nature, economics of the
mm-hmm,
human nature.
hmm.
Probably tomorrow there will be abundance of resources because of AI revolution or something like that.
Yeah,
So humans' incentives might vary to an extent, but when it comes to proof of
right.
work, that is not the game theory centered the system. It's little bit of game theory, many huge amount of physical things.
Right. And this basically points to the same fact that that proof of stake will eventually like recreate the existing fiat financial system, because in theory that's also a proof of stake system. So it's one, with this we are not solving anything new, we are just making some complicated software on top of like the existing complicated system.
Yes.
Yeah. So moving back to your journey on Bitcoin. So when was the time you realized like, okay, this shit is cool. I want to work on this. It was cool studying about it. It was cool exploring it. But now I want to get serious. When was that time, and how did that time hit?
So actually, you are going to become one of the variable in the decision. It's been. I mean, I think during 2018 we met in Bangalore. You, me, and a few other folks in Bangalore. I think that was the first or second Bitcoin meetup we ever Bitcoin only meetup we ever had in India.
Mm-hmm.
So around 7 to 10 folks, I believe, we met and had a Bitcoin chatting. So that time, after that time meet, I think we started having conversation. You, me, and Ravi and others. Then at one point of time, you joined into Bitcoin industry as a full timer. So that kind of inspired me. Okay, now this is feasible. It seems because being a family man, uh, um, in, I had a resistance of getting into the industry because it was too volatile, especially in that
Mm-hmm.
timeline. The industry was not that mature.
Mm-hmm.
The job opportunities were in primarily Western countries. So India didn't have the employees even at least I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hesitant because of the job stability that timeline.
Right.
Even though I got inspired because of your move into the industry. So I waited for some time. But around 2 years back, I started having because around 2020 Bitcoin became more mainstream. The
Mm-hmm.
adoption in the corporate world gave me more confidence that okay, this thing started picking, so it will become more. I mean, it will be more easy, and there will be more number of opportunity to get into the industry. Then I
Right.
had a conversation with you, checking how to get into the industry. You gave me some inputs. So I used those inputs and put some other ideas on top of it. Then I decided to prepare uh, around 2021. I started preparing. So I started preparing with very basics of Bitcoin, the basics of Bitcoin from Mastering Bitcoin book, technically, and I was more interested in Lightning Network because of the possibilities of building applications, more number of applications on a Lightning Network. It fascinated me more, so I
Mm-hmm.
started going into Lightning Network groups in Telegram and Twitter, exploring that. Then I decided to do a Lightning Network pet project. So I built a small Lightning Network Explorer, but graphically using Neo4j as a backend
Mm-hmm.
and Node.js. I was new to Node.js. I was primarily a Java person. So I learned Node.js and Neo4j, built a backend of Lightning Network Explorer using LND and all. Ran from my home network. So that's what I did. But I have a friend in Chennai, Sai Sodaran. So he's a front end person primarily. He was working in another company. So I told about this project and they suggested him to do the front end for that. So he jumped into the project and developed the front end front end of the application using React and D3, which is a graph library. Using that, so it's a very simple Lightning Network Explorer. You can navigate to the different nodes to the node, and you can see the basic information of the node and channels. That's
Right.
a bit idea of it. Just a
Yeah.
pet project, nothing
Yeah.
functionally important, but visually it's something that gives some idea. So I shared that with the community to get some visibility. It kind of worked. I ended up with
Mm-hmm.
talking to some employees in the Lightning Network community. Some interviews went some initial round of discussions. One of them was Bitgo. I applied Bitgo directly. So they picked up because my resume had details about this Lightning Network project and all. So they talked to me. They talked to me. We had a conversation. Then the interviews went. Finally, ended up luckily to the job. That's how we went there.
Nice. Nice.
But
So like
yeah,
few
yeah,
key insight of this is like to get a Bitcoin job, you just don't go and apply for a Bitcoin job. You just first do a Bitcoin job
yeah.
yourself and produce the proof of work and use that proof of work to display like, hey, here's what I did and here's why I am motivated to do cool stuffs for Bitcoin. And other Bitcoiners, like the employers on Bitcoin companies, are also Bitcoiners themselves, and they kind of like pick up on these cues and points. So yeah, I remember when you and Sai made that lightning explorer or
Lighthouse,
lighthouse.
lighthouse.
Lighthouse, yeah. And that's one of a kind of lightning explorer I have ever seen, because lightning doesn't have a concept of explorer, because nobody thought of creating an explorer for lightning. We have Bitcoin explorers because it makes sense, but in lightning, being able to like visually understand the graph data and checking the node connections and is actually very important for node operators to make make meaningful decisions about which nodes to connect to, how to distribute their channels and all these kind of things. So yep, that was an amazing project and I really loved that. And sometimes I show that to few students and interns about on while like explaining lightning network. So thanks for that. And really great to have like people like you, Sai, and other people from India working full time on Bitcoin. And surely it's an exciting thing. And so one concrete question about that for any aspiring developers who might be watching our video is like, what are the resources you used in your initial learning phases? Like, what are the books, tutorials, any specific you followed, any courses in YouTube that you can suggest to people?
Uh, so to me, I've read articles, random articles to understand different pieces of the system, but coherently, it was the good starting point. I would say is mastering Bitcoin. It will give a clear theoretical and understanding about the whole system, good coverage. But that will not be enough if you want to become a programmer in the domain. So you have I picked up programming Bitcoin from Jimmy Song, so covered some of the chapters from that book. But yeah, both of these materials gave me a lot of insights about the systems, because these
Mhm.
two books alone will give you almost end to end picture about what is Bitcoin and how its whole system works. Clear cut. You don't, in my opinion, we don't need any other material to refer.
Mhm.
Just finish these two books religiously, will be good.
Cover
That's
to
it.
cover and you were good, and then just jump on to like contributing into software and then figure your way out through it. Good.
Yeah.
Yep, that's in general almost the same advice I give to new people who get started into the space. Yep. um so moving on to some other concept, like other areas of discussion, I wanted to talk to you about Bitcoin development in general, and the Bitcoin development ecosystem, the different kind of work that is going on in Bitcoin development. So the first question is like, what in your opinion, what is the most pressing Bitcoin development, Bitcoin or Lightning development challenge we have right now that needs that needs attention, like that needs solution? We need to tackle it. What is the most pressing problem that you can see?
Um, so I'll start with Lightning first, because yeah, because Lightning, my understanding is currently lacks educational materials to understand the Lightning systems. Lightning is a little bit of abstract concept. To understand Lightning clearly, to do a development top of Lightning, we need some big kind understanding also.
Right.
So the educational material of how Lightning works is not that much clear to me. We have a book from uh, Andreas Antonopoulos, but I believe that there will be need for more educational, especially video content, because people will not
Mhm.
spend time on reading the book. People need videos.
Right.
So my the challenge that I had is had was looking into the videos. I couldn't find any coherent series of videos to understand this these two things, because To simply put, Bitcoin is simply a software. Lightning is
Right.
another software. That's it. Two protocols. That's it. There are multiple
Yeah.
implementations, but these are two protocols. We can have a series of videos, YouTube videos, recorded videos. That's it. 15 minutes videos to explain every concept. That's it. What is P2SH? 10 minutes video. Technically, not some high level
Mhm.
theory only. Technically, both
Mhm.
intuition and technical explanation of it. So
Right.
that kind of material would have helped me much better, speed up my progress much better. The other challenge that I had was terminologies. There is
Mhm.
no, because of the decentralized nature of the project itself, single concept have different names. And let's say for a locking script has different names when it comes
Mhm.
to uh, transactions, right? We have
Right.
for scripts, conditional scripts, script pub key. These terminologies confused me a lot because
You're right.
same terminology means a different thing when it is sitting in a different context. That is not good
Right.
for a learner.
Mhm.
So that the terminologies confused me. So then I found out one of my colleague in Bitgo shared me a GitHub link where one person explained the terminologies very clearly. I will share that link with you
Right.
probably
Yep.
in the community.
Surely.
That
Surely.
gave me a lot of headache-free thing because I referred that to move forward. That terminology thing was a confusing part, but I had a solution from my colleague. So video series and terminologies. These are two challenges I had when it comes to learning the Bitcoin and
Right.
network.
Right. So on this topic, like what do you think are like the educational material that are missing? Like, so you talked about video series, like having a video series of like 10 to 15 minutes of explainers and series of a playlist kind of thing, like that you see, like when you search like learn Python in YouTube, you find a lot of video series like that. Pick any one of them, just keep going through it, and in the end of it, you will learn something. We don't have something like that for Bitcoin. And what else do you think, like some kind of content types that we can create for both Bitcoin and Lightning that will help the next generation of aspiring developers and will solve their problems?
Uh, so the video suggestion is I primarily consume video and books, so that's why I talked about these two. But I find many people who would prefer to have a experience of learn from a tutor. So at least a group of people studying the same concept, whatever the Bitshala is trying to do and Summer of
Mhm.
Bitcoin is trying to do. So these kind of community-driven learning communities is another thing that is required to both give the, because learning Bitcoin and Lightning Network from the ground individually is kind of a daunting experience. If you have the enough motivation within yourself, you will spend the time. Otherwise, you might drop from it because there are multiple aspects that you need to learn: programming, protocols, network, in protocol and cryptography. Many things you have to learn. It's not something that very easy to pick up and go ahead. So probably with the help of tutor and peers, that will be a much better experience for some people, even though that is not my cup of tea. But I believe that many people prefer that thing. So that is another thing that have to, more communities has to come to that, this kind of
Right.
group study stuff. Yeah,
Right.
proper
Makes sense.
program end to end with clear goals, objectives, and everything.
Yeah, and like we also are trying to like tackle that problem from Bitshala. We are not the only one. Chain Code Lab and Kala are also some programs that are trying to tackle these problems in this form of like community learning. It's not like somebody is coming and teaching you anything, but you are not learning alone. There are few other people, so you can go and ask for help. You can ask stupid question. You can see others asking stupid question and not feel too bad about yourself asking stupid questions. And this kind of helps out. um uh so
But sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
another point that I wanted to talk is learning the cryptography aspect, the challenge
Mm-hmm.
of learning cryptography. because
Right.
the Bitcoin programming into a Bitcoin industry will require some amount of cryptography understanding.
Mhm.
Obviously we cannot treat it as a black box like we used to treat it when it comes to other systems. Many developers treat cryptography as a black box, similar to
Mhm.
machine learning, right? We treat it as a
Mhm.
black box. We don't
Mhm.
get into it. But when it comes to Bitcoin, what we need, there will be times that you need to understand some amount of cryptography, at least the basics of it. Without that, your code will not be a good enough one, or you will make a serious mistake, or it will take more time to finish your task. So some serious problem you will have. So that,
Right.
but when it comes to learning the cryptography, that is not a easy thing. In fact,
Mhm.
your article regarding the uh, snore signature was helpful for me when I was trying to understand the snore signature part of. I was trying to learn it part of my music to integration
Mhm.
within Bitgo. So it was one of the useful article for me, but I couldn't find
Okay.
that kind of simplified version of cryptographical explanation articles or videos. One another snore signature video is there from another important cryptographer, but I'm not able to recall his name. Actually, you shared that link to in the Twitter. So few years back, I think 2 years back, I believe that was very 45 minutes explanatory of how star signature works.
Mhm. Okay.
So that kind of material, the article that I'm talking about, I can share those two links to you. Probably you can
Mhm.
share to the community. Those two links. Similarly, I was trying to understand the ECDSA. It was not easy.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody treats the ECDC equation as a black box. Even in
Black
the
box.
explanation
Yeah.
videos, they simply sums it up in the black box. They talks about lot about the ECC, even in the books and all. But when it comes to ECDSA, they treat it as a black box. That was not
Right.
helpful for me. I tried to find out the intuition behind it, but once I read this NOR signature, then it was easy for me to get an understanding about the ECDSA equations.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
directly, it was not easy for me. So I would say, in
Right.
short, cryptographical explanation video, especially the ECDSA and star signature ECC, at least to give the intuition, because everybody is not coming from the mathematical cryptographical mathematical background, right? People who
Right.
read it in the schools and colleges, but they're not into that as of now in the day-to-day work. So we
Right.
need that kind of easy material for people. That's my
Right.
another one. Yeah.
Right. So it seems like all these materials, like this kind of like contents that gives a coherent and justified ideas about this all these complex and esoteric concepts that you need to grasp around Bitcoin: cryptography, computer science, networks, protocols, internet, economics. All they need to be packaged in some kind of like good um, good educational product, in a sense, like the kind of things you see in like institutional research. For example, you are going to learn about medical science, right? And yeah, there will be like good videos with slides, a tutor coming in and showing all the details and explaining. You will find this kind of videos in Khan Academy and in other places in YouTube. We don't have anything like that in Bitcoin as of now. Bitshala's main aim is to facilitate those videos and educational contents for uh, for the aspiring new developers. Um, another part of like learning Bitcoin is being part of the community and being involved in the community. It's not about just you getting theoretical knowledge about codes and protocols um, and crypto and whatnot. Bitcoin is also a social thing, right? And that's why, like, when we first kind of like came together in Bangalore and had a party in a pub, and that has nothing to do with cryptography programming or anything, but that was the kick in moment where we realized, okay, this is real. It's not just me in head alone in my room thinking crazy stuffs anymore. There are other people, and we are talking about these things, and there are new ideas flowing. So the the sense of community needs to exist for people to feel comfortable being part of this space. Otherwise, they feel like this lone lunatic going crazy in their head and thinking about conspiracy theories all the time. So, what are your thoughts on like engaging the community, making a coherent community, let's say specifically in India? And because most of the time we have seen like the cool Bitcoin activities are happening in the West, right? In MIT, Harvard, in Europe, in Texas, they're having all the fun, they're doing the big parties, and they have all the good tech conference and expos and stuffs like that. In India, there hasn't been any scene like that. After summer of Bitcoin of 2020, a few people started coming in, and we had the conference last year where we also had the tech stage and the general stage. That was the first time a big crowd of people came together with the idea of Bitcoin and started conversing. What do you see as a step forward? What do you see like where we can go next, and how we can build out this community so that there is like one coherent thing? And second part of the question is like, should that even exist?
Uh, I will come to the second part first, then come to the first part next. So second part is should exist because India is one of the largest population country, and we have a lot of engineers, we have a lot of youths. So Bitcoin requires as much as talent as much as possible. So India is one big pot that we can easily scoop when it comes to human resources, right? Bitcoin is collective of human resources. That's what Bitcoin is, the community is. So it's a single shot that will solve, that will harvest many resources as possible to the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I believe that India requires such kind of initiatives and the efforts and all. Now coming to the first part of the question is, there is a challenge when it comes to India. India is primarily I would say a shitcoin community driven country. Even though we have a lot of youngsters, they are mostly focusing on shitcoin related works because shitcoin gives two things: one, money; the second is um, engineering challenges, different kind of engineering challenges, research opportunities, both application wise as well as protocol wise and research wise, everything. Bitcoin lacks that inherently because Bitcoin loves simplicity for its application purpose itself. So we move very slowly because of that. But shitcoin and the crypto ecosystems moves in a different phase, volume, opportunities, right? So that's the reason that I believe that many individuals are focusing on that. To coming to the Bitcoin, people need a different set of incentive. That is the value proposition of the Bitcoin. What Bitcoin is trying to solve, what Bitcoin can become later. That kind of exposure is required to people to appreciate the Bitcoin engineering and come and contribute to the engineering and non-engineering value addition also, community, spreading the educational materials, community-driven other activities. But to do that, we need to explain the Bitcoin to the people in the way that they will appreciate. So in my mind, I have a high-level Venn diagram. One is, if you get into the Bitcoin, you will get better money if you want to become a software engineer, if you want to, but if at the same time, if you get into the Bitcoin specifically, you have an opportunity to earn better money if you want to become an employee, a software developer, or any other employee opportunities, job opportunities. So money is the first diagram that I see. The another one is engineering challenges. Even though crypto has those challenges, Bitcoin also has some challenges. Not every one single person is going to solve everything in the crypto ecosystem. Bitcoin also has its own challenges. These are all, some of them are very hard problems, even though we take more time, but we solve it gradually. So those kind of both cryptographic level and the application level, protocol level challenges involved in the Bitcoin. Especially Lightning Network brings some opportunities to build applications on the Bitcoin ecosystems. So for a person who wants to have more challenges, interesting tasks, we have in the Bitcoin ecosystem also. So you can come in to do that. So that's the second diagram. And the third important diagram that everybody lacks in the crypto, or most of them lacks in the crypto, that only Bitcoin has, is the purpose. When it comes to Bitcoin development, you are not only earning money and doing interesting stuff, you are adding a significant value addition to the society. You will have a huge number of positive community when it comes to Bitcoin. People in the Bitcoin community, you will find the same experience that you had in your college days or in the school days. They don't have much monetary incentive to talk to you. They talk to you because of the same value that we are sharing, right? Similarly, that we had in our college days, we talk to our
Right.
friends, right? Similar kind of experience you will get when it comes to Bitcoin industry that you won't find in the crypto industry. Most of the people are there for the engineering challenges or money, but here you can find the purpose and the community. That is a third diagram that I see. Actually, after some points, especially after I'm in my 30s, mid 30s, after 30s, you most people will find that we will be left alone because we will be occupied with work, family, commitments, stuff, and like that. But everybody looks for some kind of community things, right? Local community or international community, something. I want to do something, some gym activity, cycling, whatever. But if Bitcoin is one of the community, you can earn money, collaborate with people, with positive, non-monetary only motivated people to talk to you, and challenging jobs. That is a big thing for a person like me in mid 35s. It is a huge opportunity to have an exciting job. That's
Hmm.
not something that you can find. So this message has to be communicated to the youngsters
Right.
and programmers and other employees, job profiles. I think that will help them to understand. But the problem is this message is not easy to communicate, because to communicate this, you need to educate the Bitcoin itself. There is a challenge when it comes to Bitcoin education. I think I would slightly blame our community itself, the way that we talk, the terms, the complexities. It is not helpful when it comes to attract others. We have to be more inclusive when it comes to using the terms, the language, the analogies. We have to be more inclusive. So because it's very hard, because we can adds a lot of value to the society. It can attract many people because it can solve, fix the money, fix the world. That philosophy, if you communicate it clearly, many people will get interested in Bitcoin. But
Hmm.
we have to be more inclusive of when it comes to educating that in terms of terminologies and the language that we use. That's what I believe.
Right. Right. And what are the what are the kind of activities do you think that are missing in India that you see in the West or the East, and you see like I wish that existed in my local hood, my neighborhood, and you have any wish list like that?
Actually, I had, but I think it's in the last couple of years it started becoming resolved. One is Bikshala kind of initiative. Another one is having meetups and conferences frequently, local meetups and conferences frequently. Because of Bitcoin for India initiative, the conference and meetup is started happening locally in many cities. The other thing is this Bitshala kind of educational communities. So these two things have started happening. Yeah, my wishes, it has to happen more, and the frequency and the volume has to be more. Especially, I believe we should focus on college students, especially
Hmm.
because that's a institutions level solution. Easy to approach them, easy to reach them, easy to impress them because they are
Right.
looking for new things. So college focused initiative to meetups and the Vichala kind of initiative will be more useful. That I believe that will be useful for us.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. And we are trying to do as much as we can from Bitshala to cover up all these missing pieces and the grounds. And basically, like Bitshala is a team of people who came together with this kind of wish list. Like they saw stuffs in other places and said, like, wish something like that exists. So why not let's make that exist and see how far we can go with it. Yep. And the last part I want to talk about, and want to pick your brain on this, is like the interactions between Bitcoin and politics. It's a bit hard topic to talk, and because it's nuanced, and it's also very dependent on the jurisdictional politics that we are talking about. Not all politics are same everywhere. um, do you think there is a place in India and in Indian political systems to interface with Bitcoin? And do you think like the Bitcoin community, quote unquote community, and has a role to play in that?
Uh, I vaguely understood the question. Can you rephrase that in a different way?
Yeah, so imagine if we have a Bitcoin community, like a group of people who are like not structured but dispersed, maybe like lot of companies and startups, and some people coming together and trying to interface with the Indian political domain and trying to make them understand what Bitcoin is, how they should approach it, why they should not kill it, and why we are not bad people, and let's try to have that conversation. Do you think it's meaningful? Do you think it's feasible? Do you think it's useful?
I think it's useful, but the feasibility part is very hard. That's what I believe. My belief is India is very much socialist natured country, so Bitcoin inherently is alien to us, to Indian government. Even though we have right wing government as of now, our right wing is still left wing when it comes to Western world. So that's what the reality it is. So the government's reception, the government executives and the individuals being receptive of Bitcoin is not something that I expect that can happen in India sooner. It's very hard
Mhm.
challenge to focus. Hard challenge. That's why I believe that focusing on that is not going to be that easy, or not that priority, because it's very hard one. We have other problems to tackle now to allocate our resources. I believe focusing on building the startup ecosystem around within India, that will help us to indirectly push the government to have better policies and regulations, so that our current government seems like supportive of encouraging the startup ecosystem. So from that angle, they will give some consideration, because especially Bitcoin is not crypto, so Bitcoin is not something that can easily make people to lose money. So Bitcoin only startups are Bitcoin centered startups. Can convince government individuals to to understand the problem that we are trying to solve at the startup level, not as a society revolution and all, as a startup ecosystem. That's it. How we can attract the talents, how we can pull the money from the uh, other countries, how we can build new companies in India. That kind of selling pitch will work. That's what I believe to the government,
That will
not
work in
direct
your
Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, in your opinion, that kind of that is like a better way of like approaching the politics, instead of like just do stuffs, build stuffs, and show them like this is creating job and opportunity and value for the country, instead of go try to have the conversation and try to convince them.
Yeah, it's
Makes
very
sense.
hard.
Mhm. Okay. So we are already on the 1 hour mark, and we are about to conclude our conversation. And the last question I had for you is like, what does the path forward in the Bitcoin career and journey looks forward for you? Like, what are your next plans?
Next plan is actually I luckily ended up in Bitcoin team within my company very fast.
I don't think it's lucky. It was inevitable.
Yeah, because of the interest I had. So
Yeah.
my manager recognized my interest, and he gave some opportunity. I used that opportunity. I want to make best out of it. I need to first. I need to make my understanding about the Bitcoin engineering more stronger. So I'm currently focusing on the learning, and at the same time, adding the value to the company by doing my work properly. So I think my next 6 months and 1 year will primarily will be on understanding the engineering as much as possible, Bitcoin engineering as much as possible, and the product that we have in our company, which is a custody platform, to understand the different components of the platform from the Bitcoin lens as much as possible, and the cryptography that is required for Bitcoin, have a much better understanding about the cryptography. So these kind of things, and doing the job and having the hands-on experience. So my next 6 months and 1 year is going to be primarily on this one. After that, I haven't thought about it yet. So I need to earn this knowledge and experience first. That's my primary goal.
Makes sense. Yep. Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us and thanks for having these awesome conversations. And hopefully, we will do more of this soon in different formats, maybe. And really excited to meet you sometimes in real life, Chennai or somewhere else, and like keep carrying on the conversation.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Raj. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.